culminating meeting in the series this year. Mary Ellroy is an inventor of toys and games and an agent for toy and game inventors. She comes to toy invention with a corporate marketing background. She received an MBA from the Boston College School of Management. Past positions included a director position at a Fortune 50 company, a vice presidency ownership position in a newspaper advertising firm, and various advertising and media positions. Her creative accomplishments in consumer marketing inspired her to turn that energy and creativity to toys and games. Ladies and gentlemen, Mary Ellroy.
Thank you. Where's Doug? You mentioned that you want a little background on me, so that's why I'm showing this part. I started my creative career in advertising. I actually wasn't creative in advertising. I was a media buyer, but I was so envious of the copywriters and the people who made stuff up for a living. It started me going on wanting to be creative. So I got my MBA and went to, I got a job at the phone company, New England Tel, and was very, very lucky that I was there right when the Bell system was breaking up. And I was the market manager for call waiting, call forwarding, and three-way calling. And I had no budget to advertise. I had to go in retail stores. That's what I was allowed to do. And I had a computer budget. And so this was like 1985, and I met a guy at a party who talked, the minute he said touch-sensitive interactive video, I knew what he meant. And I was able to set up these screens to help people make decisions about buying these products, and they were placed, we had them in colleges and retail stores, and just for testing. But it allowed people who they would type in their phone number, and if they couldn't get call waiting, etc., back then a lot of people couldn't, then it just said have a nice day. But depending on what their central office equipment allowed them to do, if they could, then it set them on a decision tree. So I wrote decision trees, if this and this, if this and that, this, da, 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 da. And it made me realize that I loved gaming. So anyway, it was great. It was awesome too. This is 1985. This is at a college. This is at, I think, Harvard. I just saw how people took to the whole process of decision making, and that just set me on my, how do I change this? Okay, on my way to being creative. I don't know, how can I get to the next slide? Do I hit the mouse? Okay, boom, boom, boom. What's happening?
You decided to jump.
Okay, I don't know why I'm doing this.
Would you like to use the arrow keys here?
Oh yes, I would like to use the arrow keys, thank you. Okay, so one thing I did learn is that, you can invent a game, or mostly a game, and you have to be absolutely literal when you tell people how to play it. And we deployed this screen at a trade show, and people, it says touch me on it, and people were touching the words touch me. And I realized how literal you had to be, okay? So that was the corporate world, and I was getting more and more frustrated as the Bell system broke apart and there was chaos, and I just decided to leave and try something else. And so when you leave a job at the phone company, which is the most desired job in the world back then, they debrief you. They put you in a room and they debrief you, and they say, why are you leaving? And I said, I just need to be creative. And they said, well, what are you going to do? And I literally, it came right out. I'm going to invent games. And that was the first I knew of it. I had no idea that that's what I wanted to do. So after I left, I started doing research on the games that were successful. And of course, Trivial Pursuit. And back then, there was no internet. This was 89. So I went to the Westport Library and read up on the people who invented Trivial Pursuit and the people who invented Pictionary. And I kept being pointed to a source, cited over and over again, and that was Playthings magazine. And I was so excited about having a source of information about the toy industry that I got in my car and I drove down to 19th Street in New York and bought every back issue they had, and also an issue called Who Makes It? So I could get jiggly eyes, batteries, sound chips, all the stuff that goes with toys. And so in doing that, I was looking for sound chips for an idea that I had for a game. So now I'm really going to do this game thing. And I talked to the person on the phone, and I said, well, I've got to put together this game. And I'm not. And they said, well, you're looking for an industrial designer. And I didn't even know what one was. And they said, well, where do you live? Well, at the time, Westport, Connecticut. Well, we know a guy in Stamford. And so I went to visit him. And I showed him my game idea. And he said, this is really good. I think you need an agent. I didn't know you needed an agent. And he introduced me to his friend, who became my agent and mentor for many years after that. And David took me to Toy Fair, and he took me to presentations, and I watched how he did it. And then he went and got a corporate job working for a toy company, and he sprung me loose, and he gave me all the good names in his Rolodex. Okay, so this is how it happened. During all this stuff, I was coming to IACT meetings and just finding a lot of great soulmates and people to talk to. And I had an idea. And I was walking on a golf course, and I saw a lawn sprinkler, and it made a rainbow. And I said, oh man, I gotta figure out a way to turn that into a toy. I've gotta package this and sell it. And I became friendly with another inventor at IACT who was an industrial designer, and we brainstormed for hours in my kitchen, and it turned into this. So, and this is a whole other presentation for another time, and while I was presenting that idea, I realized I couldn't get people in the middle of Manhattan to go out and watch my rainbow sprinkler work, our crude prototype. And I was going to Germany to the toy fair over there, and I couldn't even take a video. Back then we had clunky old videotapes, and started learning that video was so important, to video the product rather than take a prototype. In the old days, I'd have two big rolling suitcases, and at the end now I just take a little tablet, and everything's on video. I went to Nuremberg with that because I was worried about the power, the different kind of power outlets and whether I'd be able to plug the thing in so it had a battery. So I had, and then it got to that, and then it got to that, and I got really in the biz. Okay, so that's the background. Okay, now I gotta find, this is a Mac, I need to use this. I want to open another presentation. How do I do that?
Sure.
And the reason, I'm talking at this meeting today is because toy inventing and the toy industry is pretty easy entry for inventors of all kinds. I know people in the toy industry who invent mostly for the plumbing industry, the medical industry, but toys, unlike a lot of other businesses.
Is this you?
That's it.
Is this what you want?
That's what I want. Okay. That's good. The toy industry lets you in. It's good to have a patent, we all know that, but you don't have to have one. You can file a provisional or you don't need one at all. It's fad and fashion oriented. You just be the first one. Now, I'm not talking about a genius invention toy where the one with a mind-reading toy or the mind toy, yeah.
Bob Oros always tells me I have to have a provisional before he'll even talk to me about licensing. Is that different?
Toys are different.
Toys are different.
The toy industry is absolutely, if I invented a new technology, if I even invented the Pop-O-Matic dice, I would patent the Pop-O-Matic dice. I would have a provisional, and I would try to set it up so I got the info from the confirmation from the feds, and I went out the next day and used that whole next year to pitch the idea. But the toy industry lets you in without one. You sign a submission agreement, and it does say, well, we can really screw you in a couple of years, but you can show us now. You don't have to have a patent, but if you have one, it's better. But some of the toy companies, like Hasbro, for example, their submission agreement gives you a few years where they will be good to you. You can show them something, and you're kind of protected. But the whole idea with toys is, it's fad and fashion. Just come up with new ideas. Just keep going. So it was appealing to me because I always wanted to make stuff up for a living, and I can't write, I can't draw, but I can do this. And so I've been doing it. And bunch of products on the market. But now, if you're interested in how to make money in the toy business, that's probably why you're here. How do I make money on this? You kind of had two options. You can go and manufacture your own product, like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo, or you can license to a manufacturer. Self-manufacturing is highly risky, highly expensive, and you just basically give up your life to do that. If you license to a manufacturer, it's much less risky, you make less money, but you get a royalty check every quarter. Standard royalty rate is 5% of if the item sells for $10 at Walmart, the standard rate is usually 5% of half of that $10. That's the middle price. So if it's a $10 item, your royalty would be 5% of $5. That's a pretty standard rate. You can negotiate terms, but it basically, as I said, translates to 2.5% of retail. And there are exceptions. If you're pretty good on your feet, you could probably sell your own stuff to the smaller companies. You just try to get into Toy Fair, print up some business cards. You need 2 forms of toy industry ID. You could probably, if you're good at making stuff up, you could probably figure out how to do that. And you could probably get appointments with some of the smaller companies. Make them ahead of time. Make the appointments ahead of time so that you have meetings when you get there. The major companies like Hasbro and Mattel want you to work with an agent because we screen. So they see 3,000 ideas a year screened through us. So they just can't have somebody say, well, it plays like Monopoly, but it's like Dracula, and they can't do that. Agents take from 35 to 50% of advances of royalties or more, depending on how much development the agent does. But the toy industry is in trouble. They're merging left and right. There are safety issues that have gotten a lot of them in trouble. Age compression means, back in the day when I was a little kid, 11-year-olds were playing with Barbies. Now the average Barbie player is 2. Okay? So, and then by the time you're 6, you're playing with software, and and the tablet and screens. It's eternally harder to make a living in the toy business, in spite of what I said about easy entry. But so you're a toy inventor. For whom are you inventing? I'm just going to ask you guys. Who are you inventing for if you're a toy inventor?
Kids?
Parents,
No.
grandparents,
Age group?
Nope.
toy companies.
Nope.
Yourself.
Nope. It took me 7-8 years to figure it out. You're inventing for the retailer. You're inventing for Walmart, Kmart, Toys R Us. You're inventing for them. They want to have an item that sits on the shelf for about 2 seconds, turns up and goes out. You are inventing for the retailer. So you have to think about how it looks in the box, whether the box can explain what it is, whether it's a wow. All of these things you're thinking of the retailer getting it off the shelf. Obviously the end customer is the kid. The parent usually, but the kid. But the first person you have to keep in mind is the retailer. So, mass market retailers like Walmart, Kmart, Target, they have to get the prices down. That's this whole, turning around. So they have to turn, with their skinny little margins, they have to have a lot of turnover. The thing has to move off the shelf. And there are things you have to promise them, especially the big mass market ones. And that is, as this says, some are all of a familiar brand. So it's Scrabble, Barbie, Hot Wheels, an entertainment license, Star Wars, which will probably, yes?
What kind of a percentage profit does Walmart make?
This year, you probably know that better than I do. My husband does a lot of investing.
Are you talking as a corporation or for just this application?
Just these types of items.
It varies. It varies, and that's a great question, and I'm going to put it down as something I need to get an answer to. I'm thinking from my point of view, but that's a good question. But for them, it has to be, you walk into Walmart, you walk on the toy shelf, you don't see the cool science-y toys. You see Barbie, Hot Wheels, you see familiar brands, SpongeBob, Monopoly, there you go, 2 brands. But okay, so you have a really cool, fun toy. You don't have Barbie, you don't have Hot Wheels, you don't have Star Wars. You can still get in there if you promise them a large media buy. That's a television ad campaign, $1 million ad campaign if you're in the mass market. And that adds to the price of the toy. If you have $1 million ad campaign, that adds $1, maybe 50 cents to $1 to the price of the toy. So the toy now has to have something that appears value added. You know, like a cool plastic thing that does something. It's not a board game. It's not Monopoly. It's not that. So it has to have something that appears to be worth the money. So how the inventor works in entertainment license. Experienced inventors, we get invited to line reviews, Hasbro and Mattel, and they tell us, 2 years hence, we're going to be presenting this movie from Sony that nobody's ever heard of, but we get to hear about it because they want us to invent for that license. It's risky, obviously. Godzilla was an example. Godzilla was much talked about, and everybody was really excited about it, and it bombed. It didn't do well. But that's why there's so many sequels. This year Star Wars is huge, and the Forced Friday, they came out ahead of time, and all the merch, was created. In fact, the toy industry goes and sits in the meetings in Hollywood and says, when you do this gizmo, if you do this joint like that, it'll knock 10 cents a unit off the price. So change the shape of your monster on TV so our toy can sell for cheaper. It's insane. It's all comes together. But as an inventor, if you want to invent for a toy company, you might look at what they've got now. Harry Potter was good for a long, long time. Mattel has World Wrestling. They still have it. So if you have a kind of a fun little twisty device that you could make into wrestlers, and that does something cool, go to Mattel and try to sell them something for World Wrestling. So if you're an inventor and you want to invent for the toy business, you go to Walmart and Toys R Us and walk up and down the aisles and look at the licensed properties and see how you can tweak that to fit with your idea. So you invent the product for a license. Sometimes you can come and bring both to the toy company. An example, somebody, I can't remember, I think it was Pressman Toys. Somebody brought them chess for dummies. So they went to the For Dummies people and got the For Dummies license. And the chess was just, instead of a regular chessboard, it only had 3 pawns, king and a queen and one bishop and one, it was but they got For Dummies. They got the familiar black and yellow print and the logo type and the whole thing, and they brought that together, those two things together. And if you say, I got a really simple chess game, not very interesting, but chess for dummies, now that is interesting. Again, Barbie, Hot Wheels. I know one of my cousins by marriage is a successful toy inventor, and found a chemical formulation that changed color when it was exposed to sun, and then faded back to its original color when you brought it inside. And he couldn't get clothing companies interested, but he sold it to Mattel for a backpack for Barbie. So, that's how you kind of parlay your ideas for toys. Look for something like Barbie. Look at the AI. Who does the AI? Barbie, the new Barbie. Barbie has a brain. Cover of the New York Times Magazine.
Stanford.
Yeah, really. Just the woman who invented the Topsy Tail, which was a hairdo thing, she made a lot of money, but she got knocked off. So she turned around, as she was getting knocked off, quickly sold the concept for Barbie. So again, if you can apply it to a toy, you can get in the door and you can make a little extra money as a side gig for whatever this thing was for, in its main embodiment. You don't have to invent for entertainment licenses. Cool, clever items are always in demand. New technologies, LED, infrared, low tech is cool too. The specialty market, which is which is Learning Express and stores like museum stores and the cool sciencey toy stores, they always like sciencey, clever, crafty things. So there's, you can always do that. You don't have to go for the entertainment licenses. Board games are coming back. But do not invent a board game where you roll the die, pick a card, and move on the board. You don't, that's been done. That's a mechanic that already exists. So consider low-tech mechanical randomizers like my pal, the Pop-O-Matic dice. I mean, the game of trouble is not very exciting, but with the Pop-O-Matic dice, it's awesome. Edgy, sexy games sell in limited outlets. They might be fun and funny, but you can't sell huge quantities except for Cards Against Humanity, which was an interesting experiment. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I'm sure the students are. But that was a Kickstarter project, and they made it printable online. But you could also, if you're lazy and just didn't feel like cutting out cards, you can go to Barnes and Noble and buy it. And it is crazy. It's wild. It's quite fun. It's very, very edgy. Don't be topical. I've had people call me and say, in January and an election year, and say they have a game for the election. Well, that's too late. So don't be topical. Try to stay away from topical concepts. So, you got to get to know people. So, again, going to the trade shows is a good thing. By the way, you can interrupt me with questions if you want. Yes?
When you say don't be topical, how far in advance should you be ahead of the game?
About 2 years. And that's hard because, okay, if you are topical, I mean, I did a sumo game, and we decided to make it an election game, and they were going to do it last minute, and we were sure Howard Dean would be against George Bush, and then it turned out to be John Kerry, and everybody just went, oh, and they didn't do it. They had it at a toy fair, they killed it. But it's a 2-year turnaround. Consider 2 years for no matter what you do. They have to tool, they have to go out and sell the concept, they have to, there's a lot of planning that goes into it. So 2 years is not an unreasonable time. Although I know a cardboard game or a board game, a card game could be turned around more quickly. But plan on 2 years. There are some unscrupulous companies that are just steal your idea. When you're presenting to them, when you go and meet them, don't you ever, ever, ever tell them that all your friends love it or everyone told me they would buy one, because everybody wants to be nice to you, the inventor. When you go and test it with the kids next door want to be nice to you. They want to please you, so they say they love it. And there's the Hawthorne effect. If anybody's familiar with that, the notion of being a subject of a test makes you more favorably disposed to the thing that's being tested. That was an ergonomic project, I believe, in Hawthorne, New York, where they were rearranging furniture and doing ergonomic stuff, and everybody liked everything all the time, because they were selected to give their opinion. Don't present to a company if you don't know their line. Hasbro would not be interested in a strategy game. There are exceptions. There was a company that did Herbal. They did John Deere metal miniatures. And then they came out with this bouncing ball that had nothing to do with anything. But basically, check their line now. Don't go outside of what they're doing.
So I hear what you're saying about the Hawthorne effect and people telling you what you want to hear. How do you know if your invention is a hero or a zero?
Well, one thing to do is not to tell them you're the inventor. And that's a good trick. It's to say, I'm getting paid by Hasbro or something to test this game. Would you give me your honest opinion? And then they're not trying to please you. That's a good old trick. And then for me, I just kept testing everything on the same kids. and they stopped being nice after a while. I mean, they just, they were used to me, and they knew they could just tell it like it was,
Or you test it on your husband.
Yeah, poor Mark. He gets a lot of game testing. He likes strategy games, so I usually try to, test those on him.
Are there lists of companies that you'd say, they're gonna try to steal from you?
That's a great question. There's a website called The Good Guys or something like that. It's Newfanstell Law Firm or something like that. It's kind of more getting to know people over time, and usually the ones who are stealing ideas don't last long. And inventors talk to each other. In fact, the craziest thing happened at the Dallas Toy Show a couple years ago. An inventor I know was presenting to this new company called Zuru. I'll tell you their name, Z-U-R-U. And they were a brash, young company that had all these kind of hip, cool little toys. And everybody was nervous about presenting to them, and they all brought their NDAs with them to have them sign. And this guy, Martin, was sitting with the guy from Zuru, and the door crashed in, and this guy came in and he served papers to the guy from Zuru for infringement. Right there. And I was supposed to meet with him 2 hours later, and he never showed up for the meeting. And word got around, in the inventor community that this company was, and they're still in business. I've had stuff. In fact, today I have an inventor client. I have a product coming out. His product. I repped him with a Canadian company. It's going to be sold worldwide. And he said, "What do you think of this?" And he sent me a Toys R Us, presentation. You type in, the game's called Vertigo. You type in Vertigo, and it shows another company with the wrong packaging, but the same concept. So somebody got hold of it. And I mean, we have no idea how it happened. I suspect in China. Something happened in China. We're still trying to figure out what it is. He had self-published briefly. They had his old original cards with a different brand name on them, on the box that said Vertigo. I mean, it's and there it is on Amazon.
You pull it off the internet through files sent over the internet?
I have and now I am starting, and I advise anybody, if you're going to do a product video, and I can help you with that too, because that is really helpful to do a product video, is to have a watermark on your video. Because, I know people who've seen their videos, they've actually seen their videos turn up in China, and they have no idea how they got there. They showed these 5 trusted companies, and the companies probably said, well, let's run it by our factory, and then somebody quit the factory and went to work for, and the watermark at least, gives you ownership. And I've been kind of hesitant to put my watermark right over it, because I want it to look good. I've been keeping it in the corner, but I realized that's dumb. They could easily block that watermark, But
So how do you watermark it?
well, you use it with your video software.
Okay.
You just put, I use what do I use? I use CyberLink Power Director, which is a fairly high-end consumer software. It's not a professional one, but it's fairly high-end and allows for lots of layers of video and audio. And yes.
Well, I had products made in China, iPad accessories, and the manufacturer, there were 2, because we decided to use 2 just in case, kind of, if they screwed up, we had the other one for inventory, etc. And one of them actually took our product and slightly redesigned it, and then started selling it on Alibaba.
Oh yeah.
And the best part is that they took the photographs of someone like my wife or a friend who I got to pose using our products, and they superimposed their product in with my wife. So there's my wife on Alibaba using their version of my product, and they're my manufacturer besides.
Oh my God! What did you see?
So,
That does happen, and it's not just in the toy industry where it happens, but the toy industry is kind of known for those kind of shenanigans. Again, because it's so fad and fashion oriented, and people if I had to patent everything I made, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't afford to do it. So it's loose. It's a little loose, kind of a lot of handshaky, a lot of that going on, and there's a lot of idea stealing. I mean, today I was in shock over this website. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. So what do you show them? Always working prototypes, are always the best. Although, I must say, in the game world, the analog physical game world, in the old days, before the videos, I used to stack the deck, carefully stack the deck. So when we played, it would have a cool outcome. He would win, or it would have a cool outcome, like jumping 5 things in checkers or something. It would have a cool outcome. And it was so stressful, And then you'd have to restack the deck for the next meeting, and and if you have a video, you control the outcome. And it's the best way to present games. And a lot of toys, especially outdoor toys. What are you going to do? To take them outside in winter, in February in Manhattan during Toy Fair in the blizzard and show them your sprinkler toy? You can't. But so they obviously a working prototype is a great thing to have. If you're going to go visit their place of business, it's the best thing to do is to take a working prototype. But Hasbro, for one, has really understood the expense and time of building a prototype. And these guys, in spite of the fact that they're hardcore business guys, feel terrible when they have to pass on your $30,000 prototype. And so they've told us, and I sort of did it on my own years before, to just do a fake video. And so I've perfected the fake video. So I'm going to give you an example. I had a partner, and we were just brainstorming, and he said, I have this idea. He said, what about a external Etch-a-Sketch? And I immediately got what he meant, like that pointy thing that scrapes the slurry off the screen and allows for the drawing. Well, that's no longer scraping slurry off the screen. It's a magnet. And then you put like a little Eiffel Tower holding a pen, magnetic, down with a magic marker, and the thing sits on top of the Etch-a-Sketch as you twist the knobs. And I said, well, Bob, you're a model maker. Why don't you build it? He goes, I'm not gonna break that screen, because that stuff inside is like, it sticks to everything. It sticks to the screen. That's how the thing works. It's the thought of it. We both were recoiling at the thought of it. So I said, well, I'll try a fake video. So Doug, you gotta help me again. So I did a fake video of the external Etch-a-Sketch. This is not the real thing. This is just what it would do. And it was good enough to show Ohio Art. Okay, what is this? Video.
Is it this,
Yeah. Okay.
and then you want to play this full screen?
Sure.
Okay, let me see if I can do that.
Okay, so here's the fake video. You don't have to have it. See, so it looks like it works. See, there's a fake video, okay? So you get the idea, right? And we didn't do anything whatsoever to build it. What we did was, I hope I show this.
Looks good.
Okay, so I just took an Etch-a-Sketch and stuck it on a piece of foam core and cut out the back, okay? So the magnet, and then I got under it like this. And I did that, okay. And then somebody filmed over my cousin's shoulder, and she did that. There was no knobs at all. But, and then, that, it looks like the real thing.
Yeah, good concept, yeah.
See, there you can see, there we go. There I am showing you how you do.
You sold this?
I never, no, they passed. they actually, they wanted to see it again like a few years later. But we didn't have to build it. See, that's the point. And you get good at the fake videos. If the thing has a sound chip, somebody goes off screen and does that. There's all these things you can do, and
You should put it on Kickstarter.
no, it's Etch-a-Sketch. It needs the brand. So there it is. Now that you know what it is, see that there's no knobs. It's just your brain just,
That's pretty cool. Very clever.
Well, we do a lot of that. The fake videos.
Did you
You're
sell it?
underneath the table with the magnet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you eventually sell it?
No, Ohio Art. They really liked it actually, but they passed. the thing, and here's another, go ahead.
So, how many times does it take to get it right? How many passes till you, how many failures till you get that, success? How many? Is it random?
It's random, and when I quit that job at the phone company and decided to start going into, inventing games, I invented this game that needed the sound chip, and it was like it was this, remember, a camp game where we used to go names of cigarettes, and then it would be, and I changed it to rap, and then he moved around the board, and my new agent sold it to Mattel. Bang! Right away. That was my first invention. I got a big, huge advance, like ridiculous, and about 8 months later they killed it. I had no idea that those things happened, but by then I thought I was hotshot inventor, and I invented more stuff, but it took another like 2 or 3 years before I sold the next idea. And I was now, it was very dicey, And you don't always, just because you sell an idea doesn't mean you get rich, let me tell you.
The key thing is, I guess, is don't get discouraged.
Don't give up.
Oh no, like the first one, bang, and and people do that.
Keep
It's
on trying and trying and trying and trying.
well, exactly, and when you start to talk to them, you start to figure out what they want, and you start to, you kind of get the idea. Oh, so I did that whole bit. Okay, patenting. We talked about this a little bit. Doesn't make sense to patent a board game unless it has something functionally unique like a randomizer, like Pop-O-Matic dice. Considering the fact that toys are fashion and fad, you should consider a provisional patent, and I guess you guys all know what that is. By the way, mechanical engineers are very, very, very much in need in the toy business. And industrial designers. I mean, that is model making, just problem solving is probably, and also chemistry. And I every one of the toy companies is looking for a compound. Something, moon sand or goop, or they love compounds. And if you're in that world, if you have any ideas with compounds, please let me know. I'll go halvesies for you. We'll figure out how to make it toyetic. We'll make it happen, because that is highly in demand. There's a little dicey with safety, but that can be worked out.
Mary,
yes.
Can you explain about the compounds? You mean like chemicals?
Chemicals.
Yeah.
Chemicals.
Super Bowl.
Something unique.
Yeah. Like moon sand is like a clay.
You remember the spider they had?
Yeah, they throw it
You used to
against
throw
the
it against the
wall.
wall, and it had an elastic band on it, and it would fly back at you.
Yeah, but just any combination. Yes, chemicals. Ernie. Remember Ernie? He was a member of IACT, and he was a chemist. And there's certain things they do with chemicals, like you can blindfold somebody and open a box of crayons, and they immediately know what that is. You put it under their nose. You never think about it, but they have a smell. That's part of the experience. But there's two chemicals that interact in a cool way. Some combination of chemicals that have great play pattern potential. Things that change color. They're very, 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 very interested in that. Now, if anybody's worried about confidentiality, they do have submission agreements. You should read them. I mean, Mattel's is pretty strict. That's all I'll say. It's very rare that you can take a non-disclosure agreement to a toy industry meeting and have them sign it. They don't want to sign it, and they shouldn't have to. I mean, they're the toy companies. So sometimes I just write a description of what I'm showing them, and they sign it, and I just date it, and it doesn't say they won't share it, but it does have some kind of documentation of them seeing your description. How do you find the toy companies? You join the trade association. you subscribe to the industry rags, you go to Toy Fair licensing show, trade shows about that, you go up and down the aisles at Toys R Us and Walmart and pick up the box and read the back, take a picture with your phone, you know, schmooze, you know, talk to people. What are they looking for? Again, we get the wish lists from them. That's one good thing about dealing with an agent is we know what they want. Look at what they have now. Focus on innovation. That's like a given. And do your research at the store. Go to Walmart and Kmart and Target. Is Kmart still around? Yeah.
Some places.
Target and go up and down and look at what is there. You know, line extensions are really of interest. If you something like it's a certain kind of truck, can you put accessory on it? Okay, maybe you don't get a full royalty, but if you can parlay on something that's already there, that's a good deal. Now you've made a deal. What are you going to do? It's helpful to have an agent or a toy attorney. You know, I've seen some deals, some very clever things get some very bad deals. So, and so what do you do when you get a deal? You want to get as much up front as you can. You might negotiate a higher royalty if you're really innovative. Understand that if an entertainment license is attached to it, they get a chunk of it. That's the way it is. Cap your indemnity. That means like if the box falls off the shelf and kills a child, you are not in trouble for that. Make sure that's in your contract. These are things people don't think of. That's why it's good to get a toy attorney or an agent. Be careful of sub-license deals. You know, they sell to other countries. They sell another version of it. Build in milestones. Okay, you got to ship by next January, or I get it back, or I need to make a minimum of $20,000 a year royalty, or I get it back. You know, those kinds of things. And then work with a good company.
Yes. A question. What percentage you ask upfront?
You know, it used to be sort of a complex formula based on what they considered their first quarter sales. Now it tends to be all over the place. Specialty store companies will give you as low as $500. A lot of the Europeans will give you nothing, but they'll give you 6%. And people are, you know, but when they give you something, and it can range. I mean, the highest I've heard $100,000. You know, for a highly technical toy, very innovative, patented, you know, up the yinger, and, you know, a lot of money. And it's against royalties, so you get a chunk of money, like say $5,000 or $10,000 up front, and then you don't get any, your royalty statements come and they have no minus signs on them for a while until it gets up to the $10,000, and then it starts to be plus, and that's earning out your royalty. But there's no, people ask that all the time, there's no standard percentage. You try to get as much as you can because they're invested in you then. You know, if you negotiate as big royalty as possible and it comes down to your toy and another toy finally when everything comes together, and they've already sunk 10 grand into you, they're going to go for you. They're going to try to get their money back from your idea. So, but you know, don't be afraid to negotiate. You know, the person who throws out the first number is you know, usually if you're going to throw out the first number, you better go high.
Yeah, how well can you cap your liability?
How well can you?
Yeah, I mean, can you totally protect yourself?
Well, you ask them to do a certificate of insurance and make you
Or maybe you should be an LLC at least?
Yeah, I'm an LLC, and I was advised by an attorney to be one because of the liabilities in toys. I have a strange liability story. I did a game for Hannah Montana, the Disney property, and it was some little card game about relationships or something. I don't even remember. And you know, it was right before Christmas. It was coming out at like hitting the shelves like middle of October, and my partner and I were so excited about this, and I get a phone call from the toy company. They say they're pulling it from the shelves. Why? It's a card game. Well, they packaged it in a cute little vinyl zipper case. And one of these less scrupulous testing agencies said that if you ingested the case, it would harm you. and possibly even kill you. And the Wall Street Journal, it was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, our little game, and it said that could cause death. You know, it was the front page, you know, and a little thing that sent you back a few pages to read the full story. But they pulled it, they put it in a tin package and put it out again, but it was after Christmas, you know. So all kinds of things happen. Like you don't want anybody to eat the vinyl case. You had nothing to do with the vinyl case. You just invented the card game, and they put it in the vinyl case. And you know what? Guess what? You know, nobody's going to eat the vinyl case. You know, nobody's going to. But these things, the toy industry is very funny that way. You know, they have to be safe. You have to worry about that. So again, certificate of insurance is probably your best and safest. And it used to be $1 million. We asked for more sometimes, for $1 million policy for $1 million. But you know, I've never seen. By the way, I've never seen those certificates. I just assume they sign the contracts, and that's probably bad. I don't know anybody who's asked to see one, to tell you the truth. Yes.
That LLC that you just mentioned, that falls into every single invention that you create that LLC, or everything falls into that?
My business is an LLC. I don't create a business for each of my items.
Okay.
But as a limited liability corporation, I have limited
Everything
liability.
that you invent falls into that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've been waiting to hear you say something. Maybe I'll just
Say it.
risk averse. Most of the people in markets that have power to make a product are risk averse.
Yes.
They're very much interested in being safe.
That is a good point,
Right.
Richard.
And another one is that no imagination. You know, we did something for a company out west. I won't say who it was. Like it was the time of the Atari type stuff, and a three-dimensional animated video, and we gave everybody removable hats, and you know we had a great demonstration for about half an hour. Everybody loved the game. They didn't take it because they didn't have the coin slot.
Well, I can tell you the red car story too. I mean, first of all, I think it's true. That's why there's always that's why when I first went to Mattel, I remember years ago when I first presented to them, I said I was excited to finally be able to go there myself, and they said, "What category is it in?" I said, "What do you mean category?" And they said, "Is it Barbie, Hot Wheels?" I'm like, "If it's none of the above, are you still interested?" And they're like, "Well, I don't." You know, because they're risk averse, and yes, about the lack of imagination as well. And I sometimes don't blame them. You know, if they see 3,000 items a year, you know, we call it MIGO. My eyes glaze over. Their eyes glaze over. You know, and you have to present really fast. And when you have your video, it should never be longer than 1 minute, ever, 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 and get right to the point. No statistics about play patterns. Just show us what it does. They're like, what, you know. They are, and they do. The red car story is the Link Group is a friendly competitor of mine and sometimes collaborator, and they tell the red car story. Can't remember whether it was a red car or a yellow car, but the guy from there went into the toy company with a car that had an innovation, and right away the toy guy said, "Well, yeah, I don't like the color, the yellow. I don't like the color." And Bob said, "Okay, pretend it's red," and so. He went through the presentation, and at the end of the presentation, he said, "So?" And the guy said, "Don't like the yellow car." You know, part of it, I think, is constant exposure to innovation, which can, I think, numb you in some ways. And so you really do have to kind of blow their minds. You know, you really do. And get to the point. So that's another important thing to know when you're presenting to them is not to, you know, they don't want to even know what inspired you to invent this. They don't want to know that you're going to give 10% of your royalties to a charity. You know, they don't want to know. They just want to know if it can sell and whether Walmart will want it and whether it will move off the shelf at Walmart. So, you know, it's a pretty harsh business. Yes.
So, are you into the toys with electronics in them?
Yeah.
And do you also do computer games?
No, I love them. Love computer games. The competition is way too high, and if I knew how to code, I might do it. But you have to pay a coder. You really can't. it's kind of hard to simulate. I know you could animate a game without actually building it. If you do a storyboard, do a video animation of the game, and have a fake video again, a fake video where you pretend to drag something and pretend to do that, and the movie's doing it by itself. You can do that. But I have been told by the majors that when you present anything, including toys that work with tablets and phones, and they were into that for a while, now they're sort of backing away from that. An excuse to use a tablet or a phone, put it in a ball and have an accelerometer. When you throw the ball, the thing does certain things. You have to know how to code. They want at least 5% of the coding done, enough to present it, and they want to kind of have a framework for the coding. They don't want to have to do that. They can do other things in house. Why should they pay you? They see 3,000 analog games a year, toys and games. So the video game world is wonderful. It's an interesting skill set. I don't have the other thing about video games, except for the Tetris kind of games, is that it's really also a story. Oftentimes, it has multiple plot lines and decision trees that take it everywhere. And that's complex, and it's drama and writing as well as, like the guys who did Angry Birds. That's quite a story. If you ever read up on it, Google those guys and see how they invented that game. They did a lot of testing on just the sounds and every single thing they did. Just everything they did. The sounds the pigs made, and the whole slingshot, the whole story. Even though it's a simple story, it's a story, and that's outside of my purview. So, yes.
Back when you were president, you had a guy present on reaching out to Home Depot or Lowe's and places. Do you still look at those markets? Are those still viable?
As buyers of your
Lowe's,
concept?
Inventing for Home Depot. Inventing tools.
Well, I love tools. And I was just telling Mark on the way here, I know Black & Decker requires a patent to get in the door. And that was why I talk about toys versus other industries. Most of the food, the cooking companies require a patent. There are made-for-TV companies that will let you in without a patent. Like Warren Tuttle, who's a member here, does cooking items made for TV, on TV, direct marketing stuff. And there are some of those companies who do that. There are companies that make toys, retailers that make toys like Walmart, but they go to China for just about their ideas as well, So a lot of their stuff is like commodity type stuff, like inflatable pools and stuff like that. You don't see a lot of innovation coming from the retailer branded toy items. Any other questions? I think I'm done. I think I am. Yeah. Oh, yes?
Well, in general, obviously, the direction here, is going to a toy company and licensing it. Do you have thoughts on going to Kickstarter or going and doing it on your own, and in terms of, is it worth the payoff? Because, I think a lot of people come up with ideas and then they get that one or two passes, and those people just saw 2,000 other ideas, their eyes are glazed over, they don't think it's a good idea. We've all heard the stories of, how Dr. Seuss was turned down 29 times.
Or J.K. Rowling.
Met a friend walking home dejected in a snowstorm or whatever it was, and the rest is history. So I just wonder, is there advice from you in terms of, or stories that would also give people that pause about saying, all right, I'm just going to go licensing versus taking the idea and doing it on their own?
Well, the thing is that you have to really understand. Cause one thing I don't have a clue about, and I've been in this business since 1990, is selling to retail. I have no idea how to do that. That's one of the many things you're going to have to do if you go into your business for yourself. I've had so many people say, well, I'll make it myself. But do you understand packaging? Do you understand? Can you make a planogram? Do you know how to do electronic funds transfer? Do you have a place for your inventory? You know, but I think the biggest challenge of all is getting into retail and getting your costs such that you're going to make a profit. If you're a small business, small timer, and you're going to maybe make $10,000 or $20,000 a year, how do you make a living? Because you're going to have to give up your job. This is not a part-time gig. This is a full-time thing. And I have a partner in a game that we have out right now who actually did have a lot of that retail knowledge and worked in marketing and advertising himself, and his partner was also a package designer, very, very high-end, very good. And they did a product, and it's doing okay, and it's on the market right now. It's called Tenzi, T-E-N-Z-I. And it is, and one of the things that's helping Tenzi along is Tenzi, it has no custom materials. It's made with lots of standard dice. I don't remember how many dice. I think there are 40 dice, beautifully packaged. They're getting lots of retail placement, but they didn't have to tool. They just bought dice, So that was lower risk. So that was very clever of them. And the game is really fun. I begged them to let me rep it. And they said, no, we're going to do it. And they did it. So, but I'll tell you right now, unless you know those other things, packaging, inventory, to retail. And the retail is the hardest part. Yes.
I remember my sister had this thing called Susie Homemaker.
I remember Susie Homemaker.
Right? It was an educational toy because you could learn how to bake. And it usually came with like a little package full of powdery stuff, and you added your stuff, and then the light bulb baked it.
It was a light bulb, right?
Yeah, you had to have access to a 100-watt light bulb, which I think are against the law nowadays.
They are, yeah.
But do you do educational toys? Because I think I'm an educator and I'm very interested in knowing.
I love educational. I mean, mostly my stuff is mostly games, but
Great States.
Great States, duh. Yeah, Great States. It's in its 14th year, 4th edition. It's a geography game.
Oh.
It's just.
United States, city, town.
Yeah.
Economy, all kinds of information.
That thing, and it wasn't.
Great
That's
game.
good.
Great
History
game.
too would be good.
I remember bringing a game again out to California and played great. They do a lot of fun. The marketing manager says, we want to put an axe to the head of the player.
What?
That was how we wanted to change the game. We wanted a little violence in the game. We wanted to put an axe to the head of the player. And it was an educational game.
Oh my gosh.
So educational games, it's really tough.
Well, it is, and the thing about educational games that you have to understand is that, like people say, well, you have to do a math problem. I've had people come to me and say it's educational and you have to do a math problem. No. I mean, the way you learn math in a toyetic way is with Legos. It's always inadvertent. You don't be teachy. You have to have it be kind of the upshot of what you're doing.
Well, like Monopoly teaches people how to make change and deal with money.
Right.
And there was a game called Stocks and Bonds, and you could play that, and you could learn how to like buy and sell Alcoa or something like this.
Neither of
learn
those
what
would.
Dividend was.
An inventor could not sell either of those games in 2015. They couldn't do it. But they're well branded and well loved, and branding is very, 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 very important.
But there used to be this thing called the Avalon Hill games.
Avalon Hill was when they did those big battle games.
I used to play like Blitzkrieg with my buddy, and we'd sit there and
they're still around.
Set up the card table, and it would go on for like a month.
Oh yeah, they have rule books. They're called rule books.
Yeah.
And I actually I met the guy from there, and he said, "You want to take a crack at rewriting the rules? I've had some complaints, and I, for money, he asked me to do it. I couldn't do it. It was so complex. It was like twisted my brain around. And there is a market for the fact that they're gaining. Those kinds of games are just doing really well. And if you're into that, you go to Essen, in the game show every year in Germany, and that's where you go for the RPGs and the big battle games, role-playing games like D&D, and the battle games. And those are doing really well. They're a niche market, but in their niche they do really well. If you want to make a whole lot of money, you really want to sell to, a big company and have it be. But the problem with the big companies is then you're in and out. It's a fad. It comes and goes. It's kind of unusual when something sticks around. Scattergories is one that stuck around. a relatively newer one that stuck around. Triominoes, you know, there's just some that have. Others, I have an attic full of games that you know, lasted a year, you know, so, but, yes.
What was your most successful product?
I would say Great States because it's just been around so long. It's just been, you know, steady, you know, so we'll see. I mean, optimistic, got a couple things in the pipeline, got a deal about to close, don't know if it's going to close, you know, it's, you know what it's like, you know. Some things that have just come out and we don't know if they're going to, just because you sell it and they send you your 6 samples and you're all excited of your game, you know, and then it sometimes, I sold a game to Hasbro that they put in the Twister line. It was they forced it into that brand, actually. It didn't really belong there. And they projected 250,000 or 220,000 in sales. And when the first statements came in, and they do it by country. So you get statements for every country, and I thought, I must be reading the statement for Uzbekistan. And it was the summary of all of them. It just didn't happen. It didn't take off. And they think they might have misbranded it. It was a fun game, but it was the wrong, Twister wasn't the right brand for it, you know, so those things happen. They project a lot, and then it doesn't happen, and it's heartbreaking. Other things surprise you. You know, wow. Every now and then you get a check and you go, whoa. And most of the time it's more like, you know, but that's why in the toy business you have to try to do, my theory is just keep inventing and do as much as you possibly can. You know, it's just keep going with it.
Just 2 thoughts from looking in from the outside, because I watch Mary do this. One, if you're gonna do toys, you want to try to find an evergreen product. You don't want a one-shot thing. You need the over and over and over again if you can find it. The other rule, you don't want to manufacture. You can do 20 licensing deals for no money, and every time you do a deal that you've got to manufacture, it's going to cost you a ton of money, and you could be bankrupt by the time you get to the 8th or 9th deal, and you may need 8 or 9 before you have something to work.
That's true. I have 4 clients who have garages full of inventory. 4 clients who have, you know, they have unlimited samples.
So I'm looking at Exploding Kittens.
Yes.
The card game.
Yes.
It was sold to 219,000 backers, and they raised $8.7 million.
Oh yeah, that's a
these guys
Cards
somehow,
Against Humanity.
You know, they encumber all the funds, and then they give it to you all in one lump sum, and then you have to go manufacture and fulfill the reward. In principle, you shouldn't have inventory risk at that point because you've pre-sold everything.
Right. Well, you pre-sold to your investors.
The market.
What if there's a problem with the product?
But Exploding Kittens is a card game.
That's an easy
It's just
one,
a
but
card game.
Yeah.
they
It's
have
just
had
a
other
card game.
things like that. When you get the product doesn't work and the guys get sued.
Yeah, like the thing, like the
You have the risk of
the
manufacturing.
key finder
You got-
thing.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
in
But
Indiegogo.
when you go
Right.
to Kickstarter and you look for these games, and you see there's 16,900 games that people have brought to the market, you think, well, maybe there's something to it.
I'm telling you, if you have the, you know, and I think what Exploding Kittens did, and even Cards Against Humanity, which is just black and white, it's just, the content is so good. It's just so good. You have to have the talent. And I think a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, this agent didn't want it. And I've had people say, you're the 3rd agent I've been to, and the other 2 didn't want it. I'm just going to make it myself. Well, wait a minute. If 3 professionals in the industry didn't think your game was good enough, then it's kind of a clue that you probably shouldn't do it yourself.
Well,
You know?
it says here it's for people who are into kittens and explosions and laser beams and sometimes goats. Okay, I don't get it. Right? That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. But I understand about $8 million.
That part. I know. In a card game, you know, that's fairly low risk. You know, you gotta have some kind of like zip about yourself, some kind of panache, you know, to be able to pull that off. You know, these people get on Kickstarter and they have presentations. They look cool, you know. nerdy cool, you know, and they talk well and their designs are good, and you get a little idea of what it's about, and it's good. The point is, it's good. If it's good.
But they're playing the ability that's almost like going viral. They're coming up with an idea that has that kind of carry. And that's how they get it sold, because they're not putting up any money up front. It's pre-sold.
Yeah, that's right.
What
And
could
so
be
you
right?
have to go viral with a concept. So if you can have the ability to go viral with ideas, and I have been looking for people like that for 20 years and I can't find them. So, but most of the people that go viral do it inadvertently or yeah. So, but the people who could do that and have the ability to and there are some people who can do that and do it over and over again, then marketing and that kind of stuff is terrific for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another. It's probably maybe to be recommended to try something like Kickstarter, and see what kind of feedback you get. You know, if it's low manufacturing costs, but you have to. The design is really important, and the content is really important. But design, you know, is Cards Against Humanity is an exception. It's just cards, you know, with words on them, and I think that. Roman type. I mean, it's nothing exceptional, you know.
Well, you know that they had this one fellow, I think Mike Weinstein, came with that thing with the blanket and the sleeves, and
right.
That's the stupidest idea, but he sold $500 million worth, and it's the Snuggie.
I had that idea.
You had a
I swear to
Snuggie.
God, I had that idea.
So
We all had that. Anybody who's an inventor probably had the Snuggie idea. Didn't we all have that idea?
I mean,
I think-
you can diss the bacon bowl, but it's in every Walmart.
Yeah, the
People love
bacon.
it.
Is that
Bacon bowl.
the microwave bacon bowl?
The microwave bacon.
Yeah, yeah. It's true.
So, card game. Okay, $8 million.
Or the onion flour.
Oh, the onion flour.
Yeah, another.
Maybe one more question. And then
Yes.
What do you think of the squatty potty? Have you seen that?
What is it?
It's
It was on Shark Tank.
it's on Shark Tank. Yeah.
How did I miss it? I
It's-
watch
it's a
Shark Tank
step
every
stool
Friday.
that
Oh, the
stores
step
on the
stool, you
toilet.
remember that one?
If you go to China, that's what they call it.
Positions
They
your
call it
butt,
squatty
your
potty.
butt
They're
in the
making
most
millions.
opportune.
Well, tell me how.
It's a step stool, and all they did was make a bow shape to it so it fits under the toilet.
Oh, that thing.
Yeah, you remember.
Oh, that thing.
And
Yeah.
they're making in so much money for the
That-
simplest thing. You think it's a joke, but it's.
Oh no, I loved it. Apparently that's
that
the
was
most.
Lori got that one. That's
Lori got that one. Yeah, going with pooping with your knees raised is the best way to poop. Apparently, whoever is watching this presentation at a later date probably wonders what we're talking about. What do we call it? The squatty.
Squatty potty, yeah.
Squatty potty.
I didn't know the name, but yeah, that was.
No, it's brilliant. It solves an issue. It solves some of the most elegant things. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about you talked about the specialty, like the museum store kind of products,
Mhm.
the ones that are a little more involved or thought-provoking, not thought-provoking, but I guess maybe a little more puzzled or intellectual,
Mm-hmm.
and how they can do. I mean, are those markets big enough that it's a worthwhile endeavor, or?
I think it's always, I love the specialty market. The good thing about that is that it tends to go on for years. If you invent a game for Hasbro, it can be a big hit for like 2 years and then it's gone, possibly. Sometimes it sticks around. But in the specialty market, things can just go on and on and on and on. They don't have a license to age them. Like, geez, Star Wars is so over. It doesn't, often they don't have a license. They exist on their own merit. And so you might not make a big chunk of money right away. You might actually look at Beanie Babies. Or you could, but over time, for a long time, you could make money. I just think one of the advantages of the specialty market is that they sell the items you sell in that market, sell in stores where the people who work there will demo your item. They'll say, well, I'll take one out of a box and show you how it works. Our friends who did Tenzi, they actually they give the retailers one that they can open and use and play with people. The people at Walmart and Target don't even know your game exists, or they might know, but they don't know how to play it. but they do in the specialty stores. They say, well, you know, yeah, this one's very popular with the young ones. Here's how you play, or, you know. So there are advantages to the specialty, and for inventors, I think it's sort of more interesting, personally. Kind of, yeah.
If you turn Home Depot into a specialty store, you take the one out you want to try, no one knows how it works, you take it apart, put it together, and put it back in the shelf, and another one.
What?
And walk out with a sealed one, because no one knows how those things work. You go to some of these stores, people have no idea what's on the shelf or how to make it work, so you figure it out in about 10 minutes, you put it back on the shelf. Somebody repackages it later, you pull it, take out a new one, and walk out and buy it.
Well, somebody
It's
repackages
yourself
it?
sometimes, you know?
It may be. It may be. The Home Depot is the opposite of a specialty store, though, certainly.
That's okay.
I mean, you know, it's like Ed's Hardware is kind of the equivalent of a specialty store, you know. But when you walk into Ed's Hardware, and somebody will walk you over and get you this little screw that you're looking for, and not be upset that you're only spending 4 cents in their store. You know, Home Depot, they don't even know the aisle that the screws are in. You know, not sometimes they do.
Oh, they're getting better.
They are getting better. They are getting better, but it's just, I walk into Home Depot and I go, oh, this is so big and overwhelming, and they're trying hard.
Where's
But,
Ed's specialty store?
what's that?
Where's Ed's Hardware?
I just made it up.
Oh, okay. They're out of business.
Yeah, they're out of business.
Exactly.
Rowayton Hardware, there's a real one. Rowayton Hardware. But if I just want to get a tube of glue or something, I go there. But,
It's $9, but it's there.
I think it's a good question. What do we need to pitch? Like, let's say we have an idea and we want to pitch you to represent it. What would we need to bring with us? What do you?
well, I charge a fee,
Uh-huh.
and I will talk with an inventor for up to an hour, either in person or on Skype or on the phone. And you just need to make it clear what it is you're doing. And I tell people, people hire graphic designers and do like, no. If it's a game, just tell me how it, do a rough sketch with a Sharpie pen or in PowerPoint or something, and a couple of examples of what happens on a turn. And that pretty much can tell you, if it's a strategy game, then you want to do what I said, which is like set up a cool move, and like the checkers jumping, and explain how that works. That's how you do it. So
And let's say we do that, and you're positive. You're like, oh, this seems to be very, very interesting. How does it work where you take it? What do you do to take it to that next level in preparation of you actually presenting it to potential licensors, or however you phrase it?
well, we'd be the licensors.
Right, I always get confused.
I know, it's
Seem like-
easy to get confused. The people who are selling it are the licensors. And, with an inventor, I would sign a contract, and if it needs work, we could work together. You could find a partner to, like, if it needs industrial design, if it needs a video, you could do your own video, or I could do your video. I charge you to do the video too, because it takes time. And I do a video. I'm pretty good at that. I've figured out a lot of shortcuts and figured out how to make it provocative. It doesn't always need a video. Sometimes you can do it, one picture can be worth 1,000 words. I have had meetings at Toy Fair where I sit in the meeting and I go, and they go, got it. Okay, wow. Or not wow. A lot of times it's not wow. But depending, I personally would never like drag someone along and say, oh yeah, we got to do a video and I have to do it. I have a lot of inventor clients who do a great job. It's got to be a minute or less. And sometimes I edit the video and I won't give you a hard time. Like, all right, let me just tweak it a little bit. But and then I hit I hit some trade shows, Toy Fair in New York and Toy Fair in Dallas, which was just a month ago, and then I visit Mattel and their campus in LA, and I go to see Hasbro too. They're in Rhode Island, and more and more now companies are agreeing to Skype meetings, and those are very useful because I can share the video too, and that's a really great way to present. you know, so, you know, and I just figure out a list of companies that might work for you, and I keep you posted. And if I can sell it, I'll give you your feedback. So,
Fair enough.
okay.
Well, let's thank the speaker.
Yeah, you're welcome. Where's my,
You want your
Gizmo.
thing, yeah.
see, unlike Microsoft, you can just yank it out, right?
Well, you know, I think I can.
Microsoft is like, wait a minute, wait a minute. You have to push this button and wait, and then it won't let you take it out.
So after these meetings, we sometimes go out for a snack, and I think Penny's Diner is where we've been going lately. Is anybody interested in heading out to Penny's Diner afterwards? No,
You don't
no
go to
takers.
Archie Moore's anymore?
Well, you know, we haven't been because it's been kind of loud and hard to find a seat. And so you want to go to Archie Moore's instead? I don't
You
care.
going?
I don't think I can. I'm too tired. I don't know who's going.
I'm feeling
I got one person maybe.
No, I don't want to go.
Now you don't want to go.
We're going next time.
Plan on it.
Huh?
We're going next time.
Next time?
Next
All right,
time.
maybe next time. For our next meeting, we have, in addition to the holiday party on December 10th, I've arranged for a January, last Tuesday in January presentation, and it's going to be in 2016, the new presentation for 2016. It'll be John Yankovic, and he will regale us about how to deal with patents, provisional patent applications, and I've also asked him to say a word or two about the new software patent rulings that have come out of the Supreme Court, not just Bilski, but also the Alice patent, which has caused them to disallow the last 2,500 or so patent applications. So now that the Supreme Court has had this ruling, everything you know about software patents is wrong. Thank God.
Thank God it was
You know, we've made things interesting.
What's the date of that next meeting?
Last Tuesday in January, whatever that may be. I'll have to post it on the website, and I'll send out an email link with the bio and the abstract. Yes.
This is my first meeting, so I'm just, simple question.
Yeah.
Is there a series of venues that are discussed? Is it always patents? Is it always how to make a business that's worked?
Oh, no, the emphasis next year is going to be on the Connecticut economic ecosystem. So a lot of people who are lay people are a little bit confused by Connecticut Technology Council versus the Connecticut Venture Group versus Connecticut Innovations versus the angel investors. I've invited representatives from each of these groups, and I've up to 11 speakers now. I'm the acting speaker chair, in addition to being the acting webmaster and the acting. I don't think that we don't have a vice president either, because John Crowley is working for a living now. So anyone who wants to step up to the plate and help out in terms of volunteerism, it would be greatly appreciated. You can contact me. I've got a card here somewheres. So after the meeting, take my card and we'll talk, because we need the help. It's a lot of work. In fact, I was just telling somebody today from the Connecticut Discovery Center, where there's a new Da Vinci exhibit that she asked me to tell you about.
Oh, really?
They did all the models, and they did, I was going to head up there over the weekend just to see what they were doing. I visited Da Vinci's house in Italy. He wasn't there. What a disappointment.
He's in France. I
He's in
stood on his
France?
phones.
No, it's Da Vinci. He's in Vinci.
He's in France.
He's in France? I got confused.
back.
You'll explain that to me later.
Okay.
So
Is Linda Malkin, is she still there? The
Who?
Discovery?
I don't know. I gotta find out. Anyways, there's a meeting at the end of January. We're gonna have the CTC president, Bruce Carlson, do a presentation. I've invited basically a whole host of different people, and it's going to be different every month. So hopefully we'll be able to get a little bit more insight into how to monetize
and commercialize our innovations, which is what I think a lot of us are really concerned about.
Is Angel Henry Angel, or is Angel like a name of a
Like
generic?
an angel investor or venture capitalist. So I've also invited Steve Schwartz, who just got $1 million for his new venture called Device 42. If you drive north on I-95 and you look to the right on the way to New Haven, you can see one of his ventures. It's called Tango. That's that large building with the orange moniker. I don't know what the heck it does exactly. I think it's a software or consulting thing. Software. But I don't exactly know what they're doing. And I tried using Device 42 and I couldn't figure it out. But I just have 3 degrees in computer engineering. That's your problem. If I was a mechanical engineer, it would have been no trouble. And so that's what's going on. We're going to see what we can do to turn around the speaker list so that somehow it's thematically related. Maybe. Yes?
Was that registration to come to this meeting? What was that all about? I registered them.
And you registered, yeah, you got on the list.
Yeah.
That'll put you on the email, but it also puts you into our database.
Okay.
And so with that database, if there are people who are, advertising their service or their product, and they want, that to be some, it helps us to hook people together, right? So there's a lot of times somebody will say, I really need to find a CAD designer, or I really have to find, who am I going to go to get this injection molded plastic doodad created? And I might say, oh, you need the precision wire guys with their electronic deposition molding facility, and I'll hook you up with those guys. And then, that's part of the service of being, the IACT member, right? You get that full service treatment there. And I give you more time if you're an actual paying member than if you're just a time vampire or something. You know how that is. So thanks for coming, and hopefully we'll see you at the IACT holiday party. Thank you.
All right, done. Good, thank you. No, that was just over there on the table. We're giving them away.
This is Charlie.
I haven't seen Charlie and talked to him.
What's the story of the parking lot? I probably get a ticket?
Oh, if you are...
Still working.